Alright, the 3.2 livestream happened, and that was certainly something. So, after giving myself some time to collect my thoughts, I kinda just wanted to talk through it and give my opinions on it. During the livestream, a lot of stuff was announced. I'll have the exhaustive list on screen here, but I just want to go through it in parts. First, I'll talk about the stuff that will be immediately relevant in the 3.2 patch, and then I'll give my thoughts about the stuff that's coming in the future. So, starting off with that 3.2 stuff, we're getting some pulls, around 20 more than usual. We're also getting an item that you can use to select a limited character in a shop, with the starting characters being Luocha and Ranmei, with more to be added in the future. They also announced that you can adjust your 50/50 loss pool when pulling unlimited banners, which means you can swap out 3 of the standard banner characters for 3 limited ones, which are Blade, Fujuan, and Sela. One more thing they announced is that animations are now going to be part of the main story, you know, kind of like the stuff they'd usually upload to YouTube as a Myriad Celestia or something similar. And lastly, they announced a spending event where the more money you spend, the more extra rewards you get, such as a relic re-rolling dice or that item for the Luocha and Ranmei shop that I mentioned earlier. Personally, I feel that apart from the spending event, these things are actually pretty nice, right? Like getting some pulls as well as a free limited character is cool. Losing the 50/50s to characters besides Yanqing and Bailu is awesome, and story updates is a good bonus that's pretty hard to find fault with. There's also some stuff that they announced for the future, which are as follows. A free 5-star sometime during 2025, a future Myriad Celestia that will cover what some of the other characters have been doing like Jingliu, Jingwan, and Acheron, buffs that won't come until 3.4, a mention of a possible alternate form for Dan Heng in March 7th, the true ending to White Knight that was announced for Penacony in 3.8, and last but absolutely not least, the global passive that's coming with Castoris and probably more characters in the future. In a vacuum, apart from the global passive, I think most of this stuff is actually nice too, because we know what's coming in the future, and that's always nice to see. That said, if we look outside the vacuum, this is where I personally have some issues with the stuff that was announced for the future. To break down why these things bother me, everything mentioned there apart from the global passive are things that won't be coming anytime soon, right? Like you might think, oh, the buffs on the Myriad thing for Laura in 3.4, that's soon, right? But what you have to realize is that 3.4 won't be until July, and that's a full 3 months away. How about the Penacony stuff in 3.8? Well, you'll be waiting an even longer time because that's not coming until December. What about the free 5-star? Well, who the hell knows, because Hoyo certainly didn't say. Like, don't get me wrong, it's great to know that these things are coming. It's undeniable that that's a good thing. But what's not great is that the time we have to wait for those things is absolutely massive. Like, reminder here, the buffs weren't announced at the stream. They were announced back in February, so it's not 3 months of waiting for the buffs to be implemented, but actually 4. Like, I'm gonna be honest here, and this might seem harsh, but it really baffles me how it takes a multi-billion-dollar company 4 months to introduce buffs for characters when they'll realistically end up as simple multiplier changes. This is Hoyo. I very highly doubt we're gonna see real changes here because honestly, why would they put effort into it? I mean, with the 50/50 changes, they basically made Blade and whoever else gets added into that pool a standard banner character, so what incentive does Hoyo have to make Blade even remotely as strong as a character like Maide is? Right? Like, Hoyo doesn't care about Blade, nor do they care about Jingliu and Kafka and whoever else, because why would they when they can just sell us the next character on their docket that'll probably have a global passive now that that Pandora's box has been opened? Something I don't think a lot of people are realizing here with the global passive is the same thing that people still aren't realizing with power creep. So many people look at these problems through a present-focused lens, and what I mean by that is while things might seem fine now, they won't always be. Like, Acheron is still clearing content now, but it is definitely getting harder to do so, and it'll only get harder the longer time goes on. In that same vein, like sure, Castris's global revive might not be a big deal now, but what happens when it's paired with passives like 5 speed, and then 10% attack, and then 5% res pen, and then maybe a team up where if you own 2 Amphorius characters you get a divine blessing that gives passive healing per turn? Like, do you get where I'm going with this? These things may seem small, but small things will stack up over time, and the more and more passives that get introduced, the worse this will end up for every single player that doesn't get those characters. And again, this is Hoyo, so let's be real here, they're not going to stop with just Castoris. This entire fiasco is just them testing the waters with a relatively weak passive. I fully expect them to continue adding these passives with future characters, and they'll probably be stronger than the one that Castoris God is. It'll be Castoris now, but then it'll be Finon later, and then who knows, maybe Cyrene after that. It's just a stepping stone, and because it's just the first step, mark my words on this, it'll only get worse from here. For all we know, they could and probably will start balancing the game around the assumption that players actually have these characters with global passives, which is why this is all super concerning. To be clear, I am fully aware that Castris's passive on its own isn't a big deal, I get that. But just like how we'll see buffs and story stuff months from now, and how people don't realize their currently strong characters are going to fall off hard eventually, we'll only see the consequences of this global passive system months down the line after more and more characters release with the system attached to them. What all this means is that Hoyo has essentially bought themselves a lot of time. The free stuff like getting Ranmei or Luocha, that's awesome. The free pulls, great. The 50-50 changes, I'm happy about those. But what I can't say I'm happy about is the fact that everything else that was announced isn't something we'll actually see for quite a while. It's basically just all fluff and distractions without solving the real problems, and it's us that will be waiting for those things to eventually happen. The reason I'm pretty unhappy with this stuff is that it essentially leaves the people wanting those things in limbo. They're basically stringing us along and hoping we all stick around long enough to see what those things actually are, and in the meantime they get to skate by while doing the bare minimum, because the only thing we can really say at this point is, well, just wait for the next patch because it'll be better there. As an example from my personal experience, I went into the live stream hoping to see them acknowledge that the buffs would be coming soon, and while they did actually acknowledge them, they're definitely not soon. Like 3 months is a pretty long time in the scope of the gaming world. And this is what I mean by limbo. If I'm a player that wants to use Blade again without needing something like an E1 Tribbian Sunday, I'm now basically out of luck until the buffs release, and I don't even know if the buff will end up actually being good. Honestly, like I mentioned earlier, I don't really expect it to be, because what incentive does Hoyo have to make Blade good when he's basically just a standard banner character at this point? Related to this, what about all the other characters that could use a buff, right? Like, I wanted Blade and Jingliu to get buffed, so it's great for me that they are. But what if you're someone that wanted Sela to get buffed? What if you're someone that wanted Luocha to get buffed? What about Gepard? Or God forbid, what if you wanted a 4-star to get buffed, like Preservation March, Arlen, or Natasha even? Once again, all this goes back to Hoyo just buying time, and on top of that, the lack of communication about things that were actually said on the stream. We have no idea when buffs will come for characters apart from these initial 4, and we also don't know if they'll do buffs again at all. We have no idea if the buffs are only for 5 stars. We also don't know if they plan on buffing standard banner characters at all, and if they plan on doing that, will they also buff the 4 stars? We also don't know when we're getting the extra rewards in the future, like the free 5-star that was announced, because Hoyo just didn't tell us. Being 100% honest for a moment, this is where my biggest frustrations with Hoyo as a company have always come from. As a consumer, we have basically no idea what is ever going on, and even when we do, it always takes an asinine amount of time for whatever it is to actually show up as something that we can interact with. This is more personal at this point, but it really leaves me with the impression that Hoyo doesn't actually value this kind of thing as something that requires a lot of attention, right? Like, if it takes 4 months to introduce buffs and those buffs are only for 4 characters, it makes you wonder, number 1, what is taking them so long to do it, and 2, what else are they doing in the meantime? Again, the freebies we're getting are undoubtedly nice, but they basically feel like something to tide us over, while the stuff announced for the future are them trying to give us a reason to stay. Meanwhile, the actual problems either aren't being addressed, they're being addressed much later down the line like the buffs in 3.4, or they're offering us these free things to try to get us to not think about the issues with the game. Free stuff does not replace the lack of content the game has, nor does it make up for the long wait that we'll all have to deal with for these changes if we continue to play this game. Where this leaves me is just a place of frustration and also just disappointment, and it definitely makes me less excited to jump in and keep playing the game. If I have to wait months upon months for the things that I actually care about to be put in the game, well, it almost makes me feel like I just shouldn't play until that point, which really isn't a good feeling to have. Anyway, I do want to say that I'm sorry for the more negative takes in this video. I did try to be more neutral in my preliminary thoughts video, but after the stream, I felt like I kind of just needed to thought dump and get what I was thinking out there. I fully recognize and apologize for the fact that this video may come across as doom posting, but really it just comes from a place of disappointment with the state of the game at the moment. The free stuff is nice, but the rest of it isn't, and that makes me feel relatively apathetic about the game right now. It's definitely harder for me to care about a game that doesn't really care about its players beyond doing whatever they can to keep us logging in. And after saying that, I realize there's definitely going to be people that comment, well, if you don't care, then just quit. But I do want to specify that I said it is harder to care, not that I don't. I really do think that there's still value in discussing these issues and hoping the game improves, but I guess at this point, only time will tell if it does. Anyway, I appreciate you watching if you made it this far. As always, thank you very much for watching. Subscribe, join my Discord link down below for a place to hang out and chat, and if you haven't already, maybe give my other videos a shot too.